Welcome to New to Woo, an AI girl in a woo world. Hi, I'm Danielle, your host, the girl who thought energy readings were just what happened when you forgot to pay your electric bill. Turns out, way cooler than that. I'm here to blend the two worlds that seem light years apart, AI and the mystical world of woo. From hard facts and cool things about technology and business to the transformational power of energy work, astrology, and manifestation. We're going to explore it all. Whether you're a tech nerd or a woo conscious wanderer or someone who thinks that starseed is just a fancy salad topping, that would be me. This podcast is your gateway to merging the practical and the magical. Let's dive in and see what happens when the AI meets the woo world. It's going to be weird, it's going to be wonderful, and who knows, maybe it's going to be life-changing. Hi, Jess. Welcome to the New is Woo. Thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Obviously, you are my woo-woo coach, which I find super exciting to have you on, and thank you for joining, and I know you're amazing. But can you tell everybody a little bit about what you do, who you are?
Thank you so much for having me, Danielle. And I've so loved working together. It's been absolutely incredible. My name is Jess Parillo. I officially call myself an intuitive coach and manifestation mentor. But basically, what I do is I help women who have been operating mainly in their masculine energy, who feel burnt out and are looking for an easier way to step into their next level self, to manifest the things that they want to manifest, to create the life that they want to live. And they want to feel in alignment and in flow. And so what I do is I help women uncover and unlock their next level self through intuitive guidance, through decoding signs and synchronicities, through tapping into feminine energetics, and a whole bunch of different modalities. But in a nutshell, that is what I do.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you got into woo? How did this happen for you? What's your origin story?
Always been really fascinated about the quote unquote unseen. From a very early age, I just was fascinated by the idea of psychic energy and things that we couldn't necessarily see, but that I felt were very real. And it wasn't until later in life when my life took a little bit of a turn in a way that I was not expecting, where I found myself with time. And time was something that I had not had for a very long time. Working full time, being a mom of two little ones at the time, I was not afforded a lot of time. And so as the shift happened in my life, I found myself with time to just sit still. And it was during those times of just taking a few quiet moments and really tapping inward and connecting to my inner guidance. It's really how I began to develop and cultivate the connection between what I now refer to as my spirit guides. It could be God, a source, universe, whatever term resonates with you. But for me, it's spirit guides because that is the energy that I feel. And so through cultivating this practice and really being intentional with it, I have deepened and strengthened that connection over time, which has allowed me to intuitively guide and intuitively coach my clients, intuitively offer support through my mastermind, and really begin to help women unlock that in themselves.
Yeah. I find it interesting because I've been in your mastermind now for, I think, a year. And I remember when we first got together and you pulled cards for me, you pulled that stupid ass deer. And
Ever.
I
I remember
remember
it well.
the damn deer. And the deer was all about, I think it was boundaries, right?
Yeah,
But then you
definitely.
pulled it 3 times in a row. I was like, I don't like this deer. The deer's pissing me off. Pull another card. And every time you pulled the stupid deer, and I got frustrated and I was like, stop pulling cards for me. I don't want any more cards. So when it comes to guides and stuff, is that part of that? Like, it just keeps harping on you until you have to express it? Is that a feeling that you get when you get intuitive, or?
I believe so. For everybody, it's different, and everybody's experience with it is going to be different. For me, it's a deep connection with my spirit guides, and I can receive their downloads and their information. When I am pulling cards for people, I feel like energy and the guidance is coming through me. It's very intuitively guided so that each person experiences something different whenever I am either coaching or pulling cards or offering support or guidance. It's very nuanced, and everybody's experience with tapping into their intuition is going to be different. Very often, at least for me, it starts out very faint. It starts as a whisper, and it's something that you really have to be intentional about clearing the noise, clearing the distractions so that you can actually hear the guidance that is trying to come through. That's been my experience. And usually, how I help women start tapping in is by learning to disconnect, learning to clear the noise, learning to clear distractions as much as possible because we live in a very noisy world.
Yeah.
Everybody is fighting for our attention. Everybody wants something from us. And it takes intentionality to unplug from all of that and start to get quiet. So it definitely is a practice. It's not necessarily easy, but that was just my experience. It's something that I feel I've had to be intentional about really creating that connection.
For me,
Right.
it's like posting on social media. That's something that I find very frustrating and annoying. It's not hard. It
Right.
literally takes me 20 minutes. But boy, howdy, do I avoid that at all costs. So it's hard, but not hard when it comes to, because you've really niched into women in business who have been in their masculinity as well. Can you talk a
Right.
little bit about how, because part of this podcast is woo, but also business. I love business. What drove you into the business sector specifically to support women in that space?
I think, to be honest, that the answer is twofold. For me, I am a woman in business. I'm a female entrepreneur. I am growing my business. And so I am well versed in entrepreneurship. But also, I have a very masculine energy as well. So I think that is why women, especially women in business, are attracted to me in my work because as a mastermind, I can come across as masculine as far as my delivery of certain information, but also I do have the feminine side where I can receive guidance and I'm very intentional about my intuition. And so I think it's because of the balance between the two. And again, it's not an even 50-50 split, but I think that's why women in business are drawn to me and my way of coaching and delivering information because it does have that masculine sort of connotation. I do have a masculine sort of tone. I am an Aries through and through. So I am like fire, let's go, move, do the thing. I'm motivating. So I don't know if you would agree with that necessarily, but I feel like that might be why.
Yeah. I found that my closest friends, the people that I respect the most, I'm a Libra, the people that I love the most are always Aries. That's what I've discovered. And it's really interesting because I didn't know that until maybe 2 years ago. And I found out, oh, you're like, 2 years ago, my best friend is Aries. I'm like, oh, she's an Aries. And you're an Aries. Miranda's an Aries. Like Samantha's an Aries. Like all these people who I trust deeply are Aries. And that goes into the woo woo for me too, because I'm like, that's unique. And then there's also like a couple signs where I'm like, nope, absolutely not. Like no matter what, you can be Oprah yourself. And if you're the wrong sign, I'm not trusting you. And I'm like, I don't know if that's good or not, but I do like me some Aries guidance because you do motivate and stuff like that. But you're also very kind about it. I know when we've had a lot of conversations, I have banged my head against the wall and you're super patient, which I appreciate, but you also don't let down and you're like, yeah, but you should probably still do this. One of the things I am fascinated with is business and woo. And have you seen more woo in business? Just not only because when you're in that space, but do you feel collectively it's going more in that direction or are we fighting against it? What's your kind of thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I think that the idea of incorporating feminine energy into business, which is traditionally, I believe, has a more masculine kind of energy surrounding it. I think that what is being found is rather than going against the energy and operating just in masculine energy, I feel like we're actually making bigger moves. We are moving at a faster pace when you can begin to understand and incorporate feminine energy and moving in alignment. Because a lot of times, what starts to happen is, especially women in business, we do a lot of things because we're told to do that. We're taught strategy, we're taught do it this way, do it that way. When if we just take a moment and tap into ourselves, and does this actually feel for me? Does this feel right for my business? Or am I totally repelled by this? If we are forcing it, then it's not going to work. It's going to fall flat. Our business is going to fall flat. Our energy behind it is going to fall flat. And so I think this is really important in how women can begin to really infuse feminine energy into their business by moving in a way that feels good, not only for themselves, but for their business, and make decisions out of that space and really combining the two. Because if you're just focused on strategy and numbers and metrics that are performance based, and you're not really taking into account the energetic side, the softer side, the emotional side of business, and really infusing that too, then you're really doing you and your business a disservice. So I think it's really becoming more of a mainstream topic and really something that is more widely accepted when you talk about energetics in business and alignment and that sort of thing. And so I definitely think we're moving more towards a really beautiful marriage between the two, masculine and feminine.
What I find interesting is when we talk about that, I think I've grown up in the construct of work hard to make money. What I'm hearing you say in a different way, maybe, is that it's y- working hard to make money is not actually the best way to run the business for a holistic life or for
Right.
peace and stuff like that. And I think you're really big, and maybe I'm wrong, about like when you're in the flow and when you're doing what you're called to do, what gives you joy. So when you have the balance of the feminine and the masculine, then money comes to you much easier and the business runs easier and it's a joy. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, because if you're working hard to make money and that is your mantra, work hard, make money, then most likely you will end up burnout because you can only sustain that for so long. And then that becomes your new normal. And with
Yeah.
that comes maybe a deregulated nervous system and all of those things. So when you start to infuse joy and fun and happiness and ease and alignment into your business, then things just start to unfold in a much different way, a way that feels much more in alignment. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not hard work, because tapping into feminine energy doesn't mean that you just sit back and you meditate your way to success. I'm told to do this, or this has always worked in the past, even though I don't really love this way of doing it. I'm going to continue to do it this way. So I think it's more of just coming from a place of understanding that it can be both. There's seasons in our businesses where it's hard work, where you are in the grind phase. And then there are seasons where you can ease up a little bit, allow yourself to receive and allow your business to receive everything that you have already poured into it. So again, I think it's just for everybody, it's going to be different. But I think that it's navigating the two and trying to blend them together is, in my opinion, what the recipe for success is in business.
I think my cat doesn't know. There's a little baby bird.
Yes, that's a sign.
Is that a
Yes.
sign? See, those are the things I'm like, that's cute. And I was like, oh, Jesus, is that a sign? Because the question I was going to ask is that during our meeting yesterday, because we meet once a week, which is, by the way, the highlight of my fucking week, like every week, it is the absolute highlight. And when people try to schedule other things, I'm always like, I have a non-negotiable. You know, when you can move everybody else around, but there's my non-negotiable. Jess is my non-negotiable and stuff. For the beginning, we had the eclipse and all this other kind of stuff. And I am drastically changing my business. There is a complete like 183 booming kind of thing happening where I am letting go of a lot of the old archetypes of what I was doing for my business because it wasn't working for me. And it probably never was. I was just trained in that space and very good at that space, but it was destroying my soul because it's not what I'm naturally good at. So we're massively changing what I'm doing in my business. You were saying that your guides were telling you that this is like a blank space. And no matter what you do, it's important that you do and you need to follow. Can you talk to, because that was, I felt, one of the most insightful things that I've heard. And it's also one of the scariest things that I've ever heard. Can you share a little, if you're comfortable, can you share a little bit what your guides said?
So what my guides were sharing as of this week, which is a very powerful time energetically. So what they were sharing is that we are at a point where the past, there is a definitive sort of rebirth that has occurred, whether it was by choice or not. There is a rebirth that has taken place, and we are now afforded a complete blank slate, piece of paper, blank canvas, however you want to envision it. And for the sole purpose of creating anything and everything you want. The energy is there, the power is there. What that requires, though, is aligned action, which is taking steps forward, even when you don't know exactly what the next right step is. If you feel that you're moving towards alignment, you typically will know the next right step. And this energy is all about just taking a step rather than over-analyzing all of the things that you can be doing. Because right now, the energy with this blank slate, with this blank canvas, it can feel a little bit overwhelming. It can feel scattered because there's no reference point. If you think of a blank canvas, it's not somebody saying, paint this thing or create this thing. It's you. It's your vision, and that's going to be unique to everybody. So it's, what do you desire? That's the vision. That is what this entire blank canvas, this blank slate can be. So how to get there is by feeling into what feels right now, what feels like the next right step. And sometimes that next right step can be a little bit scary. And so it requires courage, it requires strength. It takes a lot of intentionality to make those first few steps. But once you get going, you're moving in alignment. It starts to get a little bit easier. It's going to lead you to where you are trying to go. And so not to get lost in all of the minutia of it all, but just move with confidence, move with courage, move with strength, and know that you are always fully supported and fully guided by the universe and all of the spirit that is around you. So just take comfort in that if you are faced with some like little precarious steps at this point.
Yeah. I find that interesting, the blank slate kind of thing. I know we talked about the energies and stuff. And again, I'm new to the astrology thing, and apparently Neptune's in a blah, blah, blah state and all those other kinds of things. And I've been obviously following the AI part where it comes to quantum and where it comes to the, like we've talked about parallel worlds. We're going through that one book together, and how there's a lot of conversations about the 3D versus 5D and the consciousness changing technology may be here to support us and stuff like that. I also feel like this really invited me to think more deeply about the human consciousness, AI, and the spiritual, the woo portion. Three kind of things in tandem kind of conversation. I'm curious, how our business and our constructs of understanding reality are going to change when it comes to views and lens perception of reality, how we manifest our businesses and how we manifest our spiritual lives or our subconscious, however it is that you want to identify that. Those are three main points, especially in today's society. I don't know if everybody thought about business like 400 years ago, right? But that's just the world that we're living in, right? We have to make money. We have a consumerism. We have a capitalism and stuff like that. That is probably going to change. My assumption is that it's going to change. My assumption is that it's going to go down and then go back up. That's usually the historical context of how things change. It goes down and then it goes back up. When you're thinking about creating this landscape of you get to create whatever you want, is there an idea where you can maybe push boundaries of the creation is you have to think outside of what you've currently constructed?
When my guides were saying like the past is the past, you have this blank slate, blank canvas. There's no points of reference on this blank slate. So therefore, everything, it's almost like everything that's been done has been done in the past. It is a complete blank canvas. Now, that doesn't mean that we forget everything we know. We're starting at this point with all a lifetime of knowledge and experiences. We're bringing all of that forward. So it's not like an actual birth where we're starting over and we have to start at the very beginning. We're starting at the beginning, but with a lifetime of knowledge that we've accumulated. So whatever that looks like as far as what you are creating, that's going to be for the individual to determine what is the box and what am I creating outside of the box. There's going to be a lot. There's already been a lot, and there will continue to be a lot of deconstruction of what has been old paradigms. A lot of things breaking down and new things being created in an entirely different way. That information has not been accessible in past decades. So we are going to be coming into an era of almost like enlightened knowledge where we're just going to know things that and be able to create things that we didn't have access to and we couldn't even conceptualize in years past. Does that make sense? Which is beautiful. It's like we can't even comprehend it right now. Just if you were to try to explain to somebody in the 1700s the concept of a car, it's just so outside of their reality at that point. So right now, I think with this whole shift into 5D consciousness, we're activating certain parts of our brains that are going to be activated where we're going to have access to information that we didn't have access to before. And that's true as a collective. Different people will be coming online at different times, but everybody is going to experience that. So when you take people who now are operating in 5D consciousness and you're putting them together to create something, the sky is not even the limit. It's going to be a really beautiful time for growth, I think, both personally, professionally, and spiritually.
That makes me super excited. That's probably one of the main reasons why I like New to Woo and why I wanted to start this, because that is the conversation that I like having. That's what I want to hear, because there is this overtone of everything is horrible, but I don't see everything as horrible. I see what you just said. I'm like, oh my God, there's so much opportunity. And I see these positive after positive of us growing to that next state of human consciousness and growth. And as you call it, 5D. I'm still working my way through the fucking 5D thing, but we do like our meditations. We have our tarots and we have our little rocks. And I know you were just in Sedona and you communed with rocks while you were there. I heard the stories and stuff like that. And all. So I'm going to stray the question just a little bit, because one of the things that I have a hard time understanding personally, and I think anybody who's new to this kind of this idea, is you're like, I downloads from guides. And I'm like, what is that? What is that? I just feel like, are these people talking in your head like schizophrenia? Tell me what that is. Does that make sense?
So, yeah, it does. It makes perfect sense. So what starts to happen is when, or at least this was my experience, I'll share my experience, taking the time and being intentional about sitting still. One of the practices I developed during that time was I would begin to journal. I would now not journal in the traditional sense of, it was more of a free flow writing, like a free write. I would begin to do that. And what started happening over time, and again, this is not something that happened on day one, but as I began to do this, I realized what I was writing was not coming from my logical brain. So what does that mean? It means that I was using words that weren't words that I typically said, or I was writing in a way that is not how I typically would write. So I just noticed it and I didn't judge it. I didn't say, oh, this is weird or what is, I actually did do that. But I kept doing it. I didn't let that deter me. I just kept doing it because I was curious about what would come up. And so the more I started to do that, the more I was able to differentiate between my logical thoughts and my to-do list and that sort of thing. And then guidance that would come in the form of, oh, I should call that person today. I should text that person because I've been thinking about that person. I should go to this coffee shop. I haven't been there in a while and I should go there. When I would text the person or when I would go to the coffee shop, there would be some kind of like synchronistic event or some information that they had for me or something that was validating that was actually exactly where I was supposed to be at that time. And so it just developed from there. The more I took action on what I felt was guidance, the more I was affirmed and validated that is exactly what it was. And it just strengthened the muscle. It was just a practice that kept happening like that. So I started to really pay attention over time to what I was actually writing. And I was like, this seems like it's guidance coming directly from my guides or channeling in a way. I kept it very close to the vest at first because it was weird to me. It was unusual. And I didn't even know how to explain. Danielle, sometimes I still struggle with the words of what I'm trying to convey as far as the message. But I felt over time, I got more comfortable sharing the information. And it was usually when I was prompted to share it, that it was exactly what somebody needed to hear at the time. I encourage anyone that's listening that if it is something that you are desiring to do, to really tap into that aspect of intuition, because we all have the ability, we can all do it. It's just a matter of really devoting time to sit and to actually let yourself sit with yourself. That's how it starts and see what comes up.
I love this because this is something that I've heard a couple times now as we're interviewing people. It's this repetitiveness of you have to be alone with yourself and in contemplated states. That's what I'm hearing over and over again. A lot of people are not waking up with this sudden realization because Gabriel came down and flashed a big light in their eyes and said, "You're the Virgin Mary. Congratulations." There's none of that. That's a rarity. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen. Obviously, we know that does, but, or they're just crazy. So let's talk about the fact that a lot of us, how we build this intuition is probably also part of our own self care and working on shadow work and maybe actually doing some inner healing as well. Do you think that's part of the intuition as
Absolutely.
well, or no?
Yes, because what would start to happen when I was sitting in the stillness, and again, this is how I developed this practice. So again, it may not be for everybody. It may be during movement, but for me, sitting still is really being intentional. And it was difficult for me because I was used to being on the go. So sitting still was not only beneficial for my spiritual practice, but also for my self care to be able to just sit still and be with myself. But what starts to happen when you do take time to do that is emotions come up. They did for me. I started remembering things that I had forgotten about years and years ago. And often, if you think about it, it makes sense because when we sit with ourselves, it's uncomfortable. When that happens, sometimes it can bring up either unpleasant memories or things we have to do. We feel unproductive. We're reminded of something, it becomes unpleasant. And so we switch to distraction mode. I can't sit here. I need to get up. I need to do this thing. I need to check my phone. I need to avoid that. And so if you just allow the process and you allow emotions to come up, if you allow the feelings to come up, if you just let them come up, they come up so that they can be absorbed and dispersed into the universe so that you can get them out of your body. So there were times that I would sit there and cry, and I had no idea why I was actually crying. It was just repressed emotion. It was just things that I either, and I'm not saying they were huge traumatic events. It was just memories or things that would come up, and I would just let them come up. And then I would move past it because I think that in its own way is a way of healing rather than as soon as the emotion starts to come up, trying to stuff it down and distract ourselves and avoid it. If you can just let it come up and without judging it, just release it, I think it can be very impactful, especially your spiritual practice, but your self care as well.
Okay. That's interesting. So part of becoming more whole and getting into your guides and finding that spirituality is definitely going to be like releasing and giving
Mhm.
space to allow that to happen. It's almost like you're releasing and giving space to allow more fullness happen and contentment and happiness as well. Okay, I'm going to ask you an off the topic question, not totally, but when I was watching a little YouTube the other day, and there was a little mini documentary, 20 minutes about like cult leaders, right? And then people were like, oh, they didn't call them downloads, but like in the 1800s, like they started this cult and then they went off in bonkers lands and they were like you had to cut two fingers off and then pray to the wine bottle or whatever it is, right? How do we differentiate between La La Land and what we're talking about here? Because there's a lot of confusion between the two. Like, even when I was growing up, I've mentioned this before, like, I wasn't allowed to watch the Smurfs because they were demons, right? So, how do we use discernment on this?
I think for everybody, that's going to be a personal decision. You have to learn discernment for yourself. You have to know what truth feels like in your body in order for you to even as things come up. So what that means is when you're faced with two different things, you need to understand what truth feels like, how it resonates in your body. Start that practice by asking yourself different questions, like one that is true and one that is false. My name is Danielle. What does that feel like in your body? That's true. That's a fact. So what does it feel like versus my name is Miranda? What does that feel like? You start to pay attention to how your body feels. This is the easiest way to discernment. And when you're in your own body, then you're very easily able to differentiate between spirituality and a cult or what this person's saying and what this person's saying. You're faced with two different things. What feels like truth to me? Because your truth might be different than my truth. So I think that for everybody is different, but I think that as long as you feel like it is in alignment and the highest good, not only for you, but for all, then I don't want to say that's right, but that would feel like truth to me in my body.
All right.
Does that
Well,
make
I
sense?
would say that if I said like, how does it feel if my name was Miranda? I would feel like I just elevated myself a little bit. Then I'm way more outgoing.
I'm not.
And my hair is fabulous no matter what. That example, like, for Danielle, Miranda. We'll have to bring Miranda on for one of these conversations too, because she's quite in touch as well. Miranda and Jess and Lauren went to Sedona together a few weeks ago. Just, oh my gosh. Like, I was so jealous that Jess is just getting these downloads and I'm not getting anything. I would have been digging holes in the dirt.
Everybody has their own intuitive sense. It's just being intentional about developing it, and you're doing a fantastic job. I can tell you that firsthand.
The last year as well. Is there, because I'd like to talk about AI just a little bit. So I know I've introduced stuff for you for AI and stuff like that. Is there ways that you're using AI in your intuitiveness in this kind of space at all? Or what is your feelings about that?
Yes, absolutely. I think at first I was very hesitant to incorporate AI into my business because I wanted it to feel very genuine and very like me. But what I realized is how much easier certain tasks can be with the automation of AI, with the prompts as far as content goes. I would typically outsource to a VA or somebody like that. I now incorporated AI and it's been a game changer in my business because as a solopreneur at this moment, my time is very limited. And so I want to focus my time on what my actual gifts are, which is doing coaching, connecting with my guides, offering guidance, working high level women to create a life that they in business that they want to create. And so what was taking up a lot of my time was struggling with content ideas and automations. And so that's really been a game changer in my business, bringing in AI and incorporating it that way. I think it is incredibly helpful, an incredibly helpful tool.
Good at and focusing what you are good at, which is the human portion of the thing, right? The human portion of what it is. And this goes back to the ideas that you should be doing what you're called to do. That the technology doesn't necessarily remove you from the job. What it is enhancing you to do what you were called to do in the space that you're in. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I would further that by saying improving the quality of life too, because not only is it saving time in my business, it's saving me time that I'm spending away from my family. It's allowing me to really maximize my energy, my effort, my intention, my time in my business, doing what I feel like I'm good at. And basically outsourcing some of the things that I don't feel that I'm very strong at. And I also feel like with it, you have complete control to make any changes. Like you're the CEO of your business. So you have oversight. You can tweak anything, you can change anything, but it is like having an assistant on hand at all hours. Sometimes it's a little conversation with AI that sparks an entire new idea.
Yeah.
And so I think that is really impactful too, especially for your business.
One of the things that I really love about AI and what I really want to promote with it, just not in my business, but for people that I work with and stuff like that, is I am exhausted, as you well know, working 90-hour weeks. Like I'm not doing that anymore. I want 20 to 30 hours. I love work. I'm not anti-work. I actually enjoy, for the most part, when I enjoy my job, this is work and I'm having a brain time. So I enjoy a lot of the things that I do, but I do enjoy the work. What I don't want to do is be overloaded with it. I want time to sit and meditate. I want time to go for hiking. I want time to be in nature, to travel, to spend time with family, friends, etc., like that. And utilizing tools and technology and resources to give me balance, I feel is like the main goal. That for me, and I'm wondering if we're called at different times to do different things in our lives as well.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I love about AI is how do I incorporate it to do the things, not that even the things that I'm good at. How can I get to things that I'm good at? Because just because I'm good at that thing doesn't necessarily mean that's what I should be doing.
That's true.
You should be getting downloads from your spirit guides and universe and telling me what the F I should be doing.
And that's the thing. I have very strict boundaries around my contemplative time because it's through that time that I'm having, like you said, the AI tools and things that I've automated in place affords me that time because my time is very limited, as is yours. And as is every business owner, especially if they have a life outside of their business. So I agree with that 100%. I think that is absolutely true.
Yeah.
And you're absolutely right about being called to do different things in different seasons because where you are now can only happen now because you have the knowledge that you have. It couldn't have happened at a previous time. So every time that you are pivoting or entering a new phase or a new season, it's in perfect divine timing because it's with the knowledge that you've accumulated to that point. That all has to be, it's all divinely orchestrated. So you are perfectly placed and perfectly timed for this season and what you're about to accomplish, which is going to be big, massive things.
And everybody else who's listening and watching as well.
Yes, for all of us. And blank slate time is to create literally the life of our dreams. We have that energy and we have the power and the ability to do it.
I love that. So as I wrap up, can you tell us a little bit more about your Signs and Synchronicities masterclass? Because that is one of my favorite things.
I've created a Science and Synchronicities masterclass. It was actually a masterclass that I held every month and I did it live. I've actually expanded it and I have recorded it. So it is available for instant download. And it talks about what signs and synchronicities are, how to ask for them, and how to use them. So it's a really great place to begin. If you are looking to develop your intuition, we start by decoding and deciphering signs and what they actually mean for you because they're different for everybody. So I would recommend starting there. And you can find me on Instagram.
Because that's where I started. And I think I took the class like 4 times. So the fact that you put it into a class form, I love because now you can repeat it as many times as you want. Thank you so much for joining me today. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, Jess. Thank you so much for joining and giving us all your amazing insights and little nuggets. And thank you everybody else for listening.